Long live the king.
Welcome back to the channel, folks. Mr. H here, and today I'm diving back into the world of Godzilla and the Monsterverse. Now, straight up the top, this will be a bit of a rambly, unscripted video. I've done these a few times, and a lot of people seem to like them, a lot of people dislike them. If you are the latter and you dislike them, please just click off the video. Don't worry, go away, come back, and I hope to see you on another one of my videos in the future. But today, I wanted to explore the possibility of MechaGodzilla in the Monsterverse, because a lot of people have thrown this out there, and a lot of people have also suggested that the Monsterverse may connect with Pacific Rim. So I wanted to explore it in a more informal, discussion-based format, and also just get your views on the topic as well. Now, the reason why a lot of people first and foremost thought that Pacific Rim and the Monsterverse may combine was actually related to Pacific Rim Uprising's director and some comments that were made during the marketing rounds for that movie. Bearing in mind, it's really important to remember it's prior to that film's release, because that film did not do very well. But a lot of people were suggesting that they could combine, mainly off of the aesthetic of the Del Toro universe that he established, not so much what was continued in the second film, Uprising. You know, all the bright lights and the Power Ranger-esque giant robots running about in broad daylight. Now, some of the comments from Stephen S. DeKnight, the director of Pacific Rim Uprising, genuinely actually got people excited for potentially a crossover. He stated that he had ideas for a King Kong and Godzilla crossover idea for the third Pacific Rim movie, which is clearly a sequel that we've heard nothing about now, and I doubt that that's ever going to be happening at all. So his own comments were the following: "Just in my own head. I don't want anyone to think that was an official Legendary thing. That was Steve DeKnight, the fanboy, talking about what he would love to see. I have an idea, a plan for the third part of this Pacific Rim trilogy that would open up the universe and allow that crossover if Legendary wants to. It's totally up to them. As a fanboy, I would love to see it, but if they want to keep it separate, I will still be paying for my tickets to see Kong, Godzilla, and more Pacific Rim." So that was him kind of clarifying his comments, because he did state, you know, good ideas and maybe we'll cross over, but maybe we won't. And that got everyone talking. But then obviously Pacific Rim Uprising was released. Wasn't that good, or, you know, it's subjective, of course. It's a subjective opinion. I didn't think it was very good, and many other people didn't either. And as such, we've not heard anything about a sequel, and it's incredibly unlikely we'll see a crossover either. But that also got people talking about giant robots, I guess, returning to Godzilla and this new Godzilla universe that we've had established in the Monsterverse. Now, giant robots fighting Godzilla and the like is nothing new. We've got Jet Jaguar, and, you know, we have MechaGodzilla, and we even have, you know, Mecha King Ghidorah and things like this. So there is absolutely no shortage of history with giant robots and Godzilla. But could we see a MechaGodzilla in the Monsterverse? It's really important to take a look at the aesthetic of both the Monsterverse and also Pacific Rim to try to establish whether we will ever see a giant robotic Godzilla walking about in the Monsterverse, and also a crossover. So let's take a look at Pacific Rim, for instance. The aesthetic which they established in the original Pacific Rim, I absolutely could have potentially seen a crossover there. It's not an absolute certainty, but it's one of those ones where they could have retroactively fit into the universe, one or the other. You know, you could have a crossover where they cross a dimension from the Pacific Rim into the Monsterverse, because we already have dimension technology in that universe, and then the aesthetic just ever so slightly subtly changes from the Pacific Rim to the Monsterverse. And what I mean by that is if you look at the Monsterverse grading and the lighting, it's very close to Pacific Rim, but it's not exactly. So you would have had to have changed it ever so slightly. But now let's take a step further and we look at Pacific Rim 2 Uprising. Incredibly unlikely. All these bright colours and the very bombastic universe and colour palette and just action moments which they created in that world, that does not fit in the Monsterverse, not even remotely. So they kind of shot themselves in the foot there, because I do feel that if Toho have allowed Legendary to do this, because it's something which they may have done, who knows, but if they had allowed them, they could have done a crossover, but only if they hadn't changed the aesthetic. I don't feel now that with the aesthetic that Pacific Rim 2 has established that it's going to work ever in the Monsterverse. I just don't feel like it could work. You have giant monsters which move quite slowly, quite laboursome in their motions. I mean, of course, we've seen Godzilla run in the brand new trailer and things like that, but generally speaking, they look quite realistic in their movements. Obviously, not ultra realistic. Creatures of that size won't be able to bear their own weight, etc., etc. We all know this. But that being said, you know, there is a certain realism to it, and I don't feel the Pacific Rim Uprising fits in that tone at all. So there's that to take a look at. And then in doing so, we have to take a look at the tone of the Monsterverse. It's realistic. It is a very realistic tone. Although we are now getting the Oxygen Destroyer, it's confirmed, it's happening, it's going to be in the second Godzilla movie, King of the Monsters, it's still a pretty realistic world. Do you think that they would just create a gigantic robot? Unlikely. I highly doubt it. Now, I am of the firm belief that King Ghidorah in this new movie will be alluded to as an alien. I am absolutely of that belief. I think the clue is in the name, but I still think that that is still somewhat realistic for the aesthetic and tone of the movie. We've got to remember Monarch have known about Godzilla for a very long time. They have known about King Kong for a very long time. If they were going to be building a MechaGodzilla, they would have been doing it by now. So I do feel that it's incredibly unlikely that we will ever see a MechaGodzilla in this world, in this Monsterverse that they've established. I just don't feel like it's something we will ever see. I don't feel like it's going to fit. From a narrative perspective as well, it wouldn't really make much sense. How are you going to explain that they've just suddenly built this now? They've just decided now that they're going to do this, unless suddenly there's giant aliens that pop down and just give them a MechaGodzilla. I just can't see it happening. If they were going to be doing it by now, they would have had it on R&D. It would have been researched and development by now, and it would have been at least in prototype stage, because they've known about Godzilla for a very, very long time in this world. So the fact that we've not heard or seen anything about it, it means it's not going to happen. And of course, yeah, they could do like a big reveal and go, oh, we've been working on this in secret, and have like a Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. moment, you know, where they've got this S.H.I.E.L.D. base and all that kind of, you know, nonsense, like a Monarch base. But I just don't feel like it would fit in the universe, and I also don't really see what purpose it would serve. Godzilla in the Monsterverse is a Earth protector. He isn't necessarily a protector of humans, but he's a protector of Earth. So there's not really a reason as to why they would just suddenly chuck in a gigantic robotic Godzilla. So look, as much as I'm a fan of the idea of a MechaGodzilla, and I actually think if they could do it, if they could find a way to put it into the Monsterverse, I actually think that the legendary special effects guys that they've got on board for the Monsterverse at this point in time could make probably the best looking MechaGodzilla that we've ever seen. I genuinely actually think that, because I feel like what they're able to create is just it's incredible works of art. It's beautiful, and I feel like a MechaGodzilla in that tone and that aesthetic could look just fantastic. But I don't feel we're ever going to see it, unfortunately. And I feel like that's indicative of the reason why we're never going to see Pacific Rim cross over with the Monsterverse. Tonally, it just doesn't fit. Aesthetically, it just doesn't fit. And narratively, it just doesn't fit now. So there's my thoughts. Like I said, a bit rambly, a bit of a drawn out discussion video. It's not intentionally drawn out, mind you, but this is what happens when you just sit down and talk. I hope you'd appreciate sharing your own thoughts though down below in the comment section. I would love to hear your thoughts. Do you think we're ever going to see a MechaGodzilla? And do you feel like we could ever see a Pacific Rim crossover? Like I say, remember, we've not heard anything about a sequel to Pacific Rim Uprising, so I do feel like that's unlikely. I feel like they put that franchise on hold just for a little bit now. Maybe they'll come back and do like a dark, gritty tone, who knows? But let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. As always, if you are new here, hit subscribe, stay up to date on all the world of pop culture and movie news. And if you like this video, please do give it a like and a share. I've been Mr. H. Take care.